Why the fuck is nothing playing? Sorry, everybody, sorry. Five minutes of dead fucking air. Unbelievable. Give some free PDFs.
Building towers. The opening 2 paragraphs of this chapter, quoted from the Bible, attach a tremendous significance to language. By means of it, humans have been able to develop culture, a substitute for instinct that works much better at keeping the race alive. The Tower of Babel can be seen as a symbol of human progress. Language is a tool of the left brain, the portion of biology that fancies itself much like a tower risen above nature. Language is the instrument that makes such progress possible. Cats, snakes, and monkeys, as far as we know, do not increase their information, their wisdom, or their control over their environment from one generation to the next. But humans do. The civilized world to which we cling for survival today is a tower, built from the Liquid Intelligence 177-178 Chapter 7 archived language of countless men and women long dead, language that still speaks to us today through the culture that continues on after them, still vibrant within our libraries and computer networks. As the saying goes, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Who is to say where this tower is climbing to, as it elevates humanity above nature to dominate her from a powerful and lonely summit? Why would the God of the Genesis myth choose to prevent humans from building such a structure? Doesn't he want the most important creature in his creation to draw closer? Doesn't he at least desire for humans to elevate themselves above nature? His decision indicates that he doesn't approve of at least some kinds of human progress. And what of these wonders? Are the terrible physical laws of the universe, which they represent, really against us? Would they have us build false towers for millennia to lead us astray and divert the divine plan from completion? Or should we dare to practice the black arts and enlist their aid? The Hermetic approach to enlightenment. There are many kinds of towers that you can build that aid in spiritual self-discovery and many more that are lessons in futility. An intellectual approach to enlightenment is especially potent and especially dangerous. Progress can be rapid, but the student is easily led astray by the contents of his own mind. The higher the tower, the more terrible the fall. The studious method to the occult is usually referred to as the Hermetic tradition, and for the Hermeticist, the disciplining of intelligence occupies a central place in his daily practice. The way of Hermes is therefore academic and intellectual, aided heavily by an air of formality, procedure, and structure. The atmosphere of the library, laboratory, and temple play host to it. As you have seen so far, there are definite rules set down, presumably by those who have made it through the transformation process, and such rules are followed meticulously. Hermeticism therefore involves deep study, analysis, experimentation, documentation, and formal ritual. Kabbalah is one of its most important aspects. Picture as an example Faust, the legendary Kabbalist, in his laboratory, conducting experiments and dutifully recording the results. Unlike the mystic, the hermetic pupil does not withdraw into a hermitage to abstain from participating in the world of conventional customs, laws, procedures, and similar illusory phenomena. He instead reorients these constraints so eventually, and for they have no universal or intrinsic existence. This is a very sweeping statement to drop in your lap, but the mandate of Hermeticism is that you question every convention, every belief, and every rule that governs your behavior. You explore your creeds and test them methodically through experimentation. You uncover their true nature, reducing them in status from unquestioned laws to well-honed tools that you employ only when applicable. The Hermetic disciplines, proper there, but not always, for good reasons. Hermetic path, you are prodded to find out those reasons. When you see clearly why a taboo is used to keep you in line, you can respect it in a different light, not as unbreakable law, but as a discipline that leads to a certain goal. You can then modify that taboo, that discipline, to serve more conscious ends. Beliefs that used to be roadblocks become vehicles. There is no limit to how far you can go in this manner, since all ends can be transmuted into means. This is not to say that you should disregard morality and experimental atrocities. On the contrary, you should take ethics very seriously. The rules by the Liquid Intelligence 179-180 Chapter 7, which we live, are powerful instruments. Watch the apparent motives at work in your culture as you obey its laws and norms. Try to see the practicality behind every social custom. How has it come about that a man conveys respect by taking off his hat indoors? Why do so many people use the greeting, "How are you?" without expressing any real concern for the other person's well-being? Why do bosses keep their salaries secret? Can these procedures and restraints continue to serve your needs and the needs of others? By silently asking yourself the forbidden questions, you work yourself free from automated conformity. And you needn't worry that such an exploration of taboo will get you fired or arrested. Your awakened self doesn't need to be controlled by laws. The great work will naturally uncover deeper levels of goodness and wisdom that have nothing to do with morality. Would you prefer to be good because you are obedient to law, or would you rather employ that law to help you express an inner, fundamental goodness? As a magician, you will still end up participating in the moral activities of your society most of the time, but morality will not be your master. The adept sheds light on every situation, wherever he goes. No rule, no custom, no convention is too sacred to escape his scrutiny. Lemagio, you are the magician. Lemagio, you should learn to direct this kind of watchfulness toward everything that is at your command, inside and out. Not only will you learn to view the rules of society as tools, but everything you experience is to be a potential instrument in the hands of our higher self. Look at Tarot Trump card number 1, the Magician. He stands before the table on which the 4 elemental weapons, representing all forces in the universe, are his control panel. He can arrange them to suit his destiny. That which is frequently regarded as evil and illusion by mystics the world, created with our 5 senses, is consciously analyzed, defined by symbolic correspondences. We reshape it to serve us, such that it produces automatically that which we desire. Symbolism not only are rules and procedures important raw materials to the Hermeticist.
Sorry, guys, my computer keeps fucking up.
Abundances are even more crucial to his power as a magician. As old rules are questioned and dethroned, new ones are established. His TEM must be deeper if the student is going to tap into the depths of his subconscious and go beyond himself. This requires a new kind of language that is capable of stirring the deeper faculties of life, the language of occult symbols. As you have read in the Golden Dawn's Neophyte ritual, by names and images are all powers awakened and reawakened. Symbols properly utilized point beyond themselves into a luminous realm, transcends those very symbols. From this boundless beyond comes the magician's power, and likewise the power that sustains the physical world. The magician uses symbols, building from them a chain of associations that allows him to ascend from the relative world into the fundamental nature of reality. His inner tower is a link to higher and higher levels of consciousness. On his way up its spiral stair, the symbols he walks upon are terribly important to him as a means of lifting the mind from its state of object referral. However, once he reaches transcendence, the tower is left behind. His symbols have served their purpose and are set aside. He will still keep them close at hand, but not for the same reasons. In the hands of an illuminated magician, they become instruments through which power may flow back into the relative world. Symbols are steps on the spiral stair for the novice, but they compose the channel of power for the adept. The view from Nirvana. The first big question is, if the student uses symbols to ascend to the transcendent world, what does he see when he gets there and turns around to look upon the relative world? If indeed it is possible for a human being to climb to an undifferentiated, spiritual state of consciousness in which he stops attaching significance to objects in his environment via labels, associations, and meanings, how would his environment appear to him? As the same thing? As a seamless whole? As nothingness? What does a tree look like when you stop using the word tree to associate what you are seeing with previous tree experiences? This can be a very difficult question to answer, and yet it is essential that anyone on a spiritual path eventually be able to see without compartmentalizing the world into relative categories. The liquid is then imposed upon us. That's why mystics end on poetry, and why Hermeticists come up with bizarre grimoires that are of little use to anyone but themselves. One experiences reality face to face, and its appearance is void, empty of categories, labels, and verbal boxes. It has no barrier and no intrinsic structure, at least not in the way the human mind can understand it. Another question may come to mind: what's the point of trying to see the world in this way? Why would the Hermeticist, so well known for his use of bizarre symbols and categories, be fond of sinking all boundaries into the sea? One answer is that when he actually is able to see that all is one, he discovers that his symbolizing ability is a powerful asset. This is the experience of the Sapphire Eye, to which the grade of Practicus corresponds. He achieves the amusing realization that he has been misusing his mind all of his life. All that he thought he lacked is right here within his heart. When he transcends the activity of his own mind, he discerns that the only thing required of him is that he harness that mind consciously to manifest his heart in his life. The mind is seen as a fluid substance that he can remold into a better and better channel of power. The rogue angels within for most people, the ability to symbolize and label things as an unclaimed power that roams about seemingly independent of the personality. Unchecked, it is a horde of spiteful inner beasts that creates a threatening reality for its negligent master. Consider the myth of the knight who must fight monsters to rescue the maiden locked in the tower. The unenlightened mind is like that maiden, trapped in the tower of conformity, polluted by a value system that directs its magical power into a state of self-imprisonment. The knight is representative of the discipline used to liberate her. A person ignorant of his own power to symbolize is like the proverbial fundamentalist who sees sexual images in Disney cartoons. Taunted by his own repressed demons, the zealot blames the cartoonists for the pornography that he himself is responsible for perceiving. The unaware person in general sees his own pains as someone else's fault. Statements like, "You make me feel," are typical of people who do not claim their own perception of others as an ability that is under their own control. This is a very dangerous, disempowering state of mind, because its unwitting victim believes that good and evil actually exist in things around him, unaware that these phantoms are projected from within himself. The Hermeticist trains himself to work with his symbolizing ability consciously and therefore discovers that his own happiness is largely under his own influence. His inner beasts are named, tamed, and put to work. The fallen angels within are labeled, given various offices, and redeemed. The ability to use a symbolic reference with the knowledge that it has no reality outside of the mind makes for great power, because the magician can move among referenced things of this world without fear of loss. Since no significance that he projects onto an object is real, nothing that he perceives can be taken away from him. If someone steals your favorite music CD, you may react as though the very joy you experienced when listening to it were stolen from you. Is such a tragedy really possible, or is it just imagined? How can someone take wealth away from you when wealth is only a thing of the mind, a category that can be applied just as easily to an abundance of pleasure as to a stack of green paper? Since there is nothing to lose, the magician can create anything he needs. The newly born adept discovers that all around is a sea of chaos and pure potentiality, waiting for him to redefine it, reorganize it, and reshape it with the power of the symbols at his command. Instead of making his happiness dependent on his environment, he creates his environment as a reflection of his innate happiness. In such a way can he become co-creator with the divine. In such a way does he actualize on the outside the self that is on the inside, known in modern psychology as self-actualization. The map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. This is a point. The menu is not the meal. Thoughts are interpreters and sculptors of reality. They bridge the gap between divine and physical. They make up a treasure map from poverty to riches. They form a tower from earth to heaven. They are not reality itself. On the way to becoming a magician, the student learns to affirm again and again that language, the Liquid Intelligence 183-184 Chapter 7, is only a mirror and therefore a tool. Once he realizes through and through that the map of reality in his head is not the reality to which it refers, he created to change that map and use it more actively. The ordinary man unwillingly allows his external reality to create his internal map of it. The magician consciously changes his internal map to create his external reality. Another way of saying this is, you are not your mind. One of the most effective ways for you to create suffering in your life is to believe the words that come up in your own thinking and likewise out of the mouths of others. It can take much work on a spiritual path to finally turn this idea into a true realization. For such an obvious point, it is almost ludicrous to mention, but still, time and time again, the untrained individual paints himself into a coma because he habitually mistakes his personal map of the universe for the universe itself. For example, he may believe that people out to get me are everywhere. Luck, he sees as an external force that puts him mercilessly through ups and downs. Compliments make him susceptible to manipulation. Insults drag him into pits of self-obsessive worry. Evil threatens to pounce from all sides. He allows such sayings as, "Watch out for all the crazies out there," to alter his worldview. The evening news is capable of making him afraid. Imagine the frustration inherent in such a scheme, where the mind's own labels rise up and threaten it from the outside. But you might argue back something like this, but experience will verify that there really are crazies out there. Just the other day, I was walking down the street, minding my own business, when, no, there are not. Experience will always tend to verify that which you already believe to be true. In reality, there is only that which we experience and the labels that we use to fabricate an interpretation. Some interpretations work better than others at creating happiness, but no map of reality is real, no matter how convincing its labels, boundaries, and advocates are. Science, as stated above, the ability to symbolize is always active. So, if it is, then what are you doing with it now, right at this moment? Look at the people around you. Look at the local government, the news, TV commercials, and co-workers, rambling like quantum physicists and upspouters that whirl in the ether. With the advent of science and the scientific method, the world was introduced full force to the essence of Hermeticism. The scientific method involved formulating a hypothesis and explanation of how things happen, a map of reality, and testing it thoroughly. It then requires that we adjust or discard that hypothesis based on the. In other words, It acknowledges that we all have versions of reality up and running in our minds, but it mandates that we reshape them to be more accurate and yield desirable results. Rules, procedures, and symbols are the tools of its discipline. Imagine now the role of the fallen angels as the teachers of the various sciences. They are the crafty, scheming, and neglected faculties of the human mind, and they have produced great systems of discipline and great institutions that have revolutionized several times over our destiny as a species. Business has given us the idea of the assembly line, which has flooded the world with affordable merchandise, from rifles to aircraft carriers to sewing machines. Physics has given birth to quantum theory, which is still rocking the world with its development of radio, computers, and atomic energy. These institutions, these gifts of human intelligence, can make the progress of culture proceed thousands of times, perhaps millions of times faster than evolution. Away on the beach finds himself mesmerized by all kinds of towers of knowledge at his disposal. His crude animal needs cannot evolve to keep pace with his culture's intellectual advancement. His instincts are dazzled by the bounty that intelligence provides. They may even seize on the available towers provided by their surrounding culture and use them like dinner utensils at a gluttonous banquet. They may even destroy themselves in the process. In such a way do the fallen angels within teach our potential destruction. The world we are creating with science today is a tower teeming with demons. When you do not take ownership of your ability to create your own version of reality, that ability falls into the hands of undirected forces. Even though science supposedly exists to liberate humans, its power has been debased. Fear and desire are the clutching, the liquid intelligence 185.